Right. Click the links. Join the channel here. Become a member over at Subscribe. So I get mailbox. If you want to mail me some comics, though, this comic's $50, so I think you can save your money. Save your money, and don't mail this comic. It could have been cool if it wasn't for the lesbian sister bit, which seems a bit like pandering to the woke left of virtue signal for some reason. So Sean Gordon Murphy, a lesbian Zorro. This feels like the Joe Bob Briggs from the old days. God, I miss this. I miss, what was it? Mystery Science Theater, Joe Bob Briggs, and was it the Elvira, the Up All Night? Who was that chick? Or the was it Coffee TV or something? God, that was Bay Area program thing. There was a bunch of good stuff from the 80s and 90s. What happened? Well, you couldn't, I look back through some of the shows and realize, you couldn't make any of these shows today because they use hot words and make jokes that were kind of edgy at the 80s and 90s a little bit, but would be haram today. So what do you got today? Everything's dog shit. Listen, Hugo Boss, just because, no, it's dog crap. It's dog crap. I look around at the stuff that's popular now. There's top streaming shows. I went and I watched some of those. I go, this is effing horrible. Wow, you guys missed out. And anything mainstream is horrible. Like, don't you think that the Friends from the 90s or the who's that, the Seinfeld show stuff, that was horrible too. Watch that stuff again today, turn off the soundtrack. Or watch any sitcom, any mainstream sitcom, turn off the soundtrack. The reason Joe Bob's and Mystery Science Theater was so awesome was because it wasn't mainstream. Anyway, so this feels like that Joe Bob's from the old days, where you got love-bombing, trans, furry, otherkin, and comic cucks like Comics Perch, and SGM, who are discussing comics and saying the woke, anti-white, misandrist, anti-Christian, pro-sodomy, maybe some scissoring agenda that markets to the, less than 2% of the market isn't actually the problem. You look at the Venn diagram of lesbian Zorro fans and people who pay for comics. Well, hey, you're going to get about $300,000 out of this comic before it closes in a few days. So congratulations, you seem to find a fan base, but it's kind of weird because in the interview you're talking about the main character is the lesbian sister, Zorro, but in this thing, I don't think you mention her. And to his credit, I think it's hardcover. It's 120 plus pages, so that's pretty substantial comic. It's probably going to be pretty cool, and I assume that the sister stuff, it's got to be downplayed. There's no way you'd make that a central theme, right? I mean, because you're trying to. I mean, this is like you're selling one comic, but you don't want to you want to sell a second one and a third one, and you get $300,000 out of this. That means the next one is probably like you're hoping to expand your fan base. It seems like you're onto something here. So I can't imagine. He's in the interview. He said the lesbian sister was a major component. There's no way. There's no way he would do that to a comics. So anyway, so they did this interview, but and they're out of their freaking mind if they think that the problem is the YouTubers. Like, he's talking about diversity in comics type of channel. I mean, there were others like Captain Commies, who's great, and Angleton, I think he's very funny, who were doing it before diversity in comics, Richard Myers. But Myers was one who really put the stuff on the map with his little channel of a guy sitting in a car with the phone in one hand. He didn't even get like a gimbal or a tripod. I mean, later, but he was in the car doing bits on comics, and it's like it just blew up because he knew this stuff so well, and his stuff was so funny. And the comics were so bad. I mean, it's like they were handing him the perfect opportunity to make. And the thing is, he really knew his stuff. And he was funny. It's like he was able to do something that other channels weren't able to do. And credit to him for starting this multi-million-dollar industry. And you look back and realize, it really does kind of point that back to one Richard C. Meyer, who was the guy responsible for doing all this kind of stuff. I mean, you look at the timelines, it's kind of fascinating to see how things develop and what direction things go in. Honestly, it is like the alternative theories of history is like you can really go. Who's that guy? The Harry Turtledove was in and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so no, the problem is not the YouTubers who are making fun of this crap. The only reason they were able to have successful channels is because the stuff he was showing you, the comics, the America Chavez and the Kim and Kim and the Iceman from Scenic Grace and kind of it was so freaking bad. It's like that's why he was able to be successful. He wasn't making stuff up. He was literally showing you what he could show, and then he'd hide pages for the comic gods or something. And then I think the end he would rip up comics. That was the old Zach. Anyway, So these two did this interview, Comics Perch and SGM, or they're out of their freaking mind and just kind of jerking each other off in an echo chamber to think that the woke affirmative action comics are not the problem. No, listen, Hugo Boss, listen, fashionable one. The reason they don't sell and manga does, manga is like 92% of the American audience. So the American audience, American comics, you think they'd sell? No, actually, the Japanese stuff sells really well. Oh, that's weird. Why is that? Oh, well, I mean, it's because they make these woke comics that are really weird and they're just pushing diversity. That couldn't possibly be the reason. Well, okay, let's compare manga where everything looks a certain way, and let's compare these American Bolshevik comics where things look in a way that does not attract an audience. And then when we mention this, you attack the people who are discussing this instead of admitting that people are tribal and they want what they want. They like manga, and I mean, the reasons are right there. Oh, why don't you American comics just make stuff more like manga? Oh, we are, but we're going to make it diverse. No, that's not what I said. I said, why don't you make it more like manga? You mean make them all look like the way the Japanese people draw them? Yeah. Hugo Boss says what? People want what they want, and you're just a bunch of commies. No, they're actually globalists, which is much, much worse than commies. Anyway, yeah. So they're excusing the sales of manga, which is like one of the Japanese comics outsold the entire American comic industry. Get fucked, American comics. So, but in their minds, I guess they think the audiences are all bigots because they don't want the soy bullshit sodomy stories, and manga gives them what they want. Just beautiful art, beautiful characters drawn in a way that they can identify. You're saying they're all fair. They're all light-eyed and fair complexion. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's what the audience wants. That's what the audience wants. Why don't you just give them what they'll effing pay for? Because we have an agenda. And we have to race swap every single thing. So when American manga comes out, it's like, yeah, we're going to make them all diverse. Nobody wants that. And then when they say nobody wants that, you attack the person saying it instead of attacking the argument. Anyway, so Zorro is this comic is coming out, and the lesbian fish sniffing sister has to come along and rescue him. And then if anyone mentions it, they just attack the audience. And he did get $300,000 to write this lesbian comic. And like when I usually shill and beg for comics, which I'm absolutely have no problem doing. This is one you can probably skip. I think it is $50. That's a bit much to spend for a comic and for shipping. So don't send me this one. And here's the thing, and this applies to both sides. I'm far enough into this, I can say this. A lot of stuff sells just on the name and the kind of the energy behind it, and not all of it is good. And this might be a woke bait and switch. I guess he needs the virtue signal to the lesbian left for some reason. I'm not sure why he cares. And the art, hey, the art looks cool. It looks like there's a lot of action in it. But I'm sure, I don't know how heavy-handed this is going to be. Maybe someone should buy this just so they can buy it and read it and tell me about it. I'm not sure what a lesbian sister brings to the table other than virtue signaling. But, whatever, it is still cool to see independent comics come out, whether it's Comicsgate or who's the Zoop guys are doing their thing. And this, there's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and private companies. It's like left and right. People are putting out their stuff. Anything that gets people away from Marvel and DC is great. And if you pay $50 and you get this thing, or some of the tiers are several $100s, you'll find out if it's worth it when you get it. But he does this interview and he refuses to address the woke agenda in comics, and saying that he's 90% aligned with Heather Antos. Why would you even virtue signal a statement like that? And why does anyone even care what Heather Antos thinks? She's a minor editor who goes back and forth from video games and comics. And the only reason she made a name for herself is because with she took a picture, put it on the internet with the milkshake, and a bunch of like 30-year-old cat ladies were editing comics badly. And she got like a half a dozen comments on the internet. And you're like, welcome to the internet. I get told to delete myself weekly, sometimes by the people who I regularly see on the BitChute Odyssey channels. That's just part of life in the internet, To say, I don't know what they were saying about them. I mean, do women belong in comics? Oh, that's kind of a longer... No. because that's not what the audience is. So when you've got like an overrepresentation of somebody in an industry, it's a bad sign. Where a comics company or video game company starts and it's a half a dozen guys, usually white or Asian guys, in a basement or a building, garage they rented. That's actually a lot of history is guys renting garages, starting up something. Game companies, software companies, tech companies, whatever, by renting a garage. And then 10 years later, you look at the company, it's like 60% women. You're like, there's a problem here, because they're not the ones who started the company. They don't have that same mentality. It's usually men who do this kind of stuff, and you're selling to men, and the men know their audience. So yeah, it is a problem. And I know, like, when the woke people hear me say, yeah, women are not an asset to this industry. I know how that sounds to people, but like the argument I gave, if your audience is 99% men, you really want to have 99% men in the industry and not women making decisions at the editorial or story level. If they're making art, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, I think I made a pretty cogent, coherent argument, and like people hear it and they just respond to hot words. Anyway, let me take a look at Mags's. Anyway, my point was that Heather Antos, or who's it, Ren Famous, the Lauren girl, they shouldn't really be known names. They only got names because they had CG to bounce against. And to be fair, CG only got really put on the map because Mark Waid went after Jawbreakers and that Antarctic publishing company or something, and literally doubled. Zach's comic was going to top out at $200,000 for Indiegogo. And because of Mark Waid's interference, pissed so many people off. And people like Zach. I like Zach. I don't even know him, but I like what he's done. It went to over $400,000. Because of Mark Waid's interference. So Comicsgate and anti-Comicsgate, like, there is such a thing as monetizing people's hatred, and it mostly works in Comicsgate's favor, because a lot of these people, the anti-CG people, the Ramfamous types, the Heather Antos types, they're not putting out their own product for some reason, which if I was anti-CG, I absolutely would. And this guy, Murphy's not anti-CG, he's just kind of trying to be safe off in the middle, do his own thing. He is, legitimately selling his own product to the tune of $300,000. So congratulations to him. But like all these other people, if I was Antos, or if I was Mags, I'd be putting out, I'd be selling the comics. Now, here's the thing with Mags. There is, and I hope Zur doesn't hear this, and I know people hate me when I say this, there is a little bit of talent that could be grown into something. There is a core of a good writer underneath it. Like, to be a good writer is not like just to be basically competent. If Matt, I'm trying to be careful of pronoun. I don't know the YouTube rules on pronouns. I'm not sure what pronouns Zur uses over here. You can't just keep grinding this 80s, 90s angst of like Generation X Star Wars references, being mad at your dad and just constantly pushing socialism and the BLT agenda, simply because the audience isn't out there and you're involved in a commercial enterprise. And if you want to pay your mortgage and you want to race you enjoy racing your Honda 250 on the weekends because the tires cost $1,000 each and you got to keep it in oil. You get the idea. It's like your hobbies cost money. You're in a commercial, you have to sell comics, and selling Kim and Kim the 900 by the issue 4-5 doesn't make sense. And the only reason they're offered all these opportunities is because ultimately they put themselves at the top of this imaginary privilege ladder where trans is at the very, very peak in terms of privilege. And if he was Brian Visaggio, he would have to work a whole lot harder. And I don't mean this, I'm not trying to be passive aggressive to them, but you're like, to be trans is shooting yourself in the foot because you're given opportunities and you never have to improve yourself. Where if you were just Brian Visaggio, you'd be busting your ass and improving every day, and you'd be an accomplished writer by now. And I know they're not going to hear this, but I also know if they did, they know that there's truth to it, because you're essentially subsidized by this industry because you have this, you put yourself at the top of this ladder where you're given all these opportunities, but you can't live up to them because you never improved as a writer because you don't have to improve. Anyway, so Mags is in the same situation. I'm not sure how they're involved in this Murphy situation, except it's implying that they had some kind of homosexual relationship with Murphy. And the virtues thing, but Mags is a name like Heather Antos and Renfamous that nobody should even know of because they don't actually sell comics. The only reason is because they put themselves on top of that privilege hierarchy, but like the Kim and Kim and all the other stuff sells. I mean, they have a ton of comics they put out there for like San Francisco, LA shops. issue 4 or 5, they're all down to 900. Anyway, so Mags, this bizarro tweet. Honestly, they're just living in an echo chamber where Mags is probably like 50 pounds bigger than Murphy, and they're implying that Murphy has some kind of fetish for short, chubby, obese, Italian people in dresses, probably with the big hairy set of nuts. So they say, I'm not looking for comfort and sympathy, so no, please, no internet hugs or advice. Gross. I just want to talk about, okay, again, Sean never touched me, because if you said that, you'd be sued for defamation. Or intimated he might do so, then why'd you mention it? He didn't touch you, didn't even say anything in that direction. Again, gross. I'm not accusing him of assault, again, defamation, but he did hook me and use me. Okay, so that's not defamatory statements of fact, so you're safe from civil adjudication there. But the thing is, Mags is also in the position of being judgment proof. So it's like, sue me all you want in defamation, buddy. It's going to cost you money, and you might actually get a judgment one way or the other, but you won't be able to fulfill that judgment. Anyway, everything from the unfulfilled promises of future professional financial assistance to the love bombing, gross, just effing gross. All in the service to make sure I defend him when he did problematic stuff. Like what? Try to talk to people on both sides. Okay, so what they're saying is Sean Murphy was just nice to you and had a nice normal adult conversation, and you read a lot of stuff into it. Why would Murphy provide financial assistance to you? And Murphy can't give you any future professional assistance because right now you can't write because you never improved upon your writing because you didn't have to. So there's nothing anyone could do for you because you're not fundamentally talented. They would just be screwing somebody over if they put you in a position. I mean, the best thing he could do for you would be sit down with you for 3 hours and go through some of your stories and just carefully explain to you, do you want to be a better writer or not? And ultimately, Mags does not want to be a better writer. They want to smoke a lot of weed, I'm assuming. They want, I don't want to make it well, I think he's admitted, or Zers admitted to smoking a lot of weed, being a pothead kind of stuff, and taking, estrogen, all this kind of stuff, and being a character online instead of being a better writer, where they spend all their time on Twitter instead of learning how to write and learning how to develop characters instead of just putting all this Generation X stuff about socialism's the way, man. We're going to be so edgy and punk rock, bro. It's like, just work on writing. Just work on being a better writer. Anyway, Sean, so he validated me during a period of intense career anxiety. So he was just nice to you. You were probably bugging him and he's just being nice to you, and you're reading a bunch of stuff in it. And you have a bunch of career anxiety because you don't have to ever work on your writing. Just practice writing every night, practice story structure and character arcs, and learn about who's that? Kurosawa's. I have that book on. Oh God, I literally have that book. Story arcs. Learn about writing characters that do cool things that people think are cool things, not about what less than 1% of the trans market thinks is cool, because it's not a sustainable industry. And I know you think socialism is cool, but probably also want to read a little bit about that and learn how lame it actually is. And I mean, it results in well-fertilized fields and bone gardens type of stuff. Anyway, you can check out Sean Gordon Murphy's. Oh yeah, he did the Bigfoot Bill stuff. And because Doug Tenaple's a Christian, I like Doug. I know some of the comics people don't like Doug, but I like Doug. I think he's who he is. He's not shy about that. He's just upfront about that, so I totally respect that. He did some cover art for that, and then he got pressure and he pulled it. Now that's a punk ass bitch move, is to bow down to pressure. And one of the guys actually from Mystery Science Theater bowed out of pressure also, and disassociated himself. And again, that's the height of cowardice. Doug's a Christian, and I don't know. I don't even remember what he said, but I mean, I've read the stuff that they're talking about. It's like Mike Miller saying pride is a sin, and people I look at that and goes, yeah, that's his religion. Just there's nothing to say about it. Just move on. Don't make it an issue. But this guy pulled his cover because Doug's a Christian, and it's funny. You look at the Christians now, the hardcore Christians in the 80s, because, as cringy as they were a lot of times in the 80s, a lot of the stuff they say actually turns out to be right. It seems like society does need a structure. And if Christianity is a structure for a lot of people, then it's better than what they replaced it with, which is just this mindless hedonism, this narcissistic gazing in a pond while society kind of Nero fiddling away while society kind of burns in the background as you're seeing, hey, we got Biden in office. Yeah, how was that working out? Well, it looks like World War III. Oh, that's not good, is it? No, get your, was it iodine pills for atomic fallout? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. You can check out Murphy's comic on Kickstarter. Just type in Sean Gordon Murphy's name and you'll see Zorro. Again, it looks cool as long as the lesbian stuff isn't, like, nobody wants to see that. And so did, who's that guy? Who's the guy who owes $40 to Captain Cummings? Big Hawaiian Dick. What's that guy's name? I forget the guy's name. $40, Captain Cummings, Big Hawaiian Dick. That comic looks great. Also, the art's beautiful. It's too bad you collected, I don't know, $40,000 or something 6-7 years ago for a comic on Kickstarter that you never produced it. You just kind of kept the money, and I think she probably spent it on beer from the looks of you. It's weird. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.